rule of effective money habits is you need to spend, less than you earn, and not everybody does that. And so that's what I teach my kids from a young age: you spend less than you earn some money, spend less than you earn, and do something with the surplus. But a lot of the times people get into property because they go, no, I don't really want to spend less than I earn. I just want to live life now.
This is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset, and strategies. I'm Tyron Shum, and in this episode on Property Investory, we're keeping the conversation going with property developer Dave Bradley. We'll discuss how to maintain effective money habits to enable your success, the 3 components you need for property development, and how to make $600,000 in cash flow by the end of the week. Also, before we delve into this episode, go over to propertyinvestory.com and subscribe to receive your free property investor case studies, where you'll learn how to generate passive income from your properties. Go there now to sign up for free. When it comes to making the first move and purchasing that first investment property, Bradley believes the lack of money or the fear of losing money is what holds people back.
There's money, and whether money is either capital or it's finance. So I think the biggest one that holds people back amongst both those is the fear associated with that. So if I said to a person, we'll put money, I've got a deal for you, I want you to put $100,000 into a deal, then, you will go, what will hold you back is the fear of losing that $100,000. If I said, I want you to put $100,000 in and sign for a $1 million loan, you may have the fear of being called on the $1 million loan. And so I think that's what holds people back. And I think there's an echo of the fear as a false expectation appearing real. So what I've tried to do to work through that is to work out what are the chances, the probabilities of that worst case scenario actually coming through. And you can sort of work out strategies for what you think is the case or why it's the case, and you put yourself at ease. I think over my time of doing all this stuff, there seems to be 2 things that motivate people. It's fear and it's greed. So the people come from 2 different spectrums, and people smarter than me can probably talk better on the 2 spectrums. So typically, though, what I find is that people want to do stuff, but they become fearful of things. And so I don't know whether it's because it's the fear of doing something new. And so when we were kids, we would do something new all the time. We would go to school and we would learn a different skill each day. And we'd get to a point where we stop learning that skill, or we stop learning that discipline of trying to learn that skill, so we think we know it all, whether you're age 18 or 28 or 38, it doesn't really matter. You think you get to a point where you know it all. And so I think part of that is to actually be open to saying, well, actually, no, maybe I don't know it all. Maybe I can learn something else from this experience and so forth.
So, what held Bradley back from investing in property?
The greatest, for me, the greatest mistakes, or my greatest mistakes have been not going hard enough. It's never been something I've bought. It's always been something I go, man, I should have bought that, or I could have gone harder for that. I should have gone longer for that. But what holds people back, I think, is the fear. Now, that can be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they could have, it could be a track record of, underperforming and so forth, and the psychologists will tell you it's because you don't believe you deserve it, and I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes down to it. A friend of mine, Brendan Nichols, has this saying that, the enemy of a great life is a good life. And so sometimes, if you've worked really hard to get the $100,000, then you don't want to invest it because you know how hard it was to make it. If you didn't have $100,000, you just go, no problems. And so I find this fascinating to talk to my kids about when talking money, because their concept of money is not necessarily, it's being formed. And, so they will understand that, Dad buys a piece of property and he knocks it down, builds 4 houses and sells them. Yeah, no worries, I get that completely. There are some things that goes wrong, but that's what Dad does every day at work. So the fear, it's almost youthful exuberance, that they don't have that fear there. So the only thing that really holds them back then is the practicalities of not having the money. But here's the thing with the money, and this is what I've discovered in more recent times, is you don't actually have to have the money, So the first of these things called banks will give you the money. And then what's happened in more recent times is the banks have, got tightened up with their lending procedures. There's other people, private investors who've made money who go, I just want a return on my money. And I actually would love to partner with someone who actually knows what they're doing, is a good custodian, and they perceive it to be safe, or the risks are taken care of. And so there are people who will go, I would love to give you money, Dave. And that's one of the things I've probably discovered in the last number of years, is that there's an investor market out there that, you may not have the capital for a project, but if the project's any good, you will find the capital for the project.
Having built a good track record as a property developer has certainly helped with his success, but it's also about being able to manage his money well.
With all that, though, part of the things of being a good custodian of money is to have effective money habits. So the first rule of effective money habits is you need to spend, less than you earn, and not everybody does that. And so that's what I teach my kids from a young age. You spend less than you earn some money, spend less than you earn, and do something with the surplus. But a lot of the times people get into property because they go, no, I don't really want to spend less than I earn. I just want to live life now, and I just want property to pay for the increased lifestyle I think I deserve, or I want to have. And you go, well, that's okay, and you might actually be able to do that for a period of time. But there's also a chance that you're building a business on quicksand, and that, you might fall over because you haven't actually got sound fundamentals in place to start with.
To hone his mindset around property, he consults various people. However, it's also vital to back yourself when searching for mentors.
For property development, I rely on a lot of the consultants that I use for specific, technical knowledge. I catch up with a buddy of mine who also does this, and we will talk more high level about our respective businesses. We'll catch up on probably a quarterly basis to do that. So I guess it comes as a heading of catching up with peers. And I also seek counsel from a couple of friends, more about keeping me grounded and seeing things from a different perspective, rather than just getting caught up in the buy something else, and keep going about why it is that you're actually doing something. What is it that you're actually trying to achieve, and that sort of stuff. And so I don't necessarily sign up for mentoring courses per se, or have that, but I definitely seek people out. And one of the problems of this business is that you are seen as the leader by a lot of people who work underneath you, for various consultants and trades and whatever else. So they see you as having all the answers, which is maybe true in some cases, but it's not always true. And so how do you direct the ship in the way that you actually want to go? And so I guess you try and seek out other captains and find out how they're doing it, how they're coping with things. But a lot of times, in relation to reading the market, I think you can talk to one of the problems of talking to too many people. So if you read the signs and read them a certain way, sometimes there's a skill that I've developed where you just actually you trust yourself and trust your instinct that if everything says that's okay, then that's okay. Sometimes you can look too hard about why is this not going to work, which is a lot of what a lot of people do, all the things that could potentially go wrong.
With many people looking for Bradley for answers, he stresses the importance of owning his mistakes when they occur, fixing them and then learning from them.
Not afraid to put my hand up and say I made a mistake. I don't like making mistakes, but I'll put my hand up and if I make a mistake and go, I made a mistake. And I'll wear the mistake and, I try and do better next time, or whatever the case is. But then I'll tell you what I'm going to do to fix the mistake. So, which is not just blame everyone else. This is now what we're going to do. And so I find that if you're increasingly so, it feels like you deal with people and organisations, and it's always someone else's fault. It's never, no one will actually take ownership. And I actually find that you'll actually get a lot of mileage from just actually owning the mistake. Now, I get that organisations don't necessarily want to preach that's the case, but if you stand in front of someone and go, you're right, Tyrone, I stuffed up, I'm really sorry. There's not a lot you can say right then. Like, you can have a go at me and go, you're right, I did, I stuffed up, I've apologised for it. But what do you want me to do? I'm now going to fix it. But of course, if you want to fix it yourself, you can fix it yourself. It's up to you. But I'm telling you, I can fix it. And this is what the fix is. And the fix might involve more money at the project. It might mean an extra month's interest. There's a whole bunch of things that may involve. But once the mistake's been made, I can't unwind the mistake. And so the first part of that is to actually own the mistake and accept responsibility for the mistake. Now, the next part of that, as you come to that, is to learn from the mistake. All right, why did this mistake happen, and what can I do to prevent it from happening again? Because in every project I finish, I go, what did I do well and what did I do poorly? What can I do better in the future? And so as the market changes, as the industry changes, as the finance conditions, everything changes. You're still learning about, well, I did that really, really well. And so I'll give you an example, right? So I've been to auctions in the past where I have been, I don't know, I've tried to be the alpha male at the auctions and stamp my authority on the auction, not necessarily being a thug, but, bid confidently and, rah, and be loud and this sort of stuff, and with varying degrees of success. I went to an auction probably about 60 days ago, and I tried a completely different tact where I was really passive and almost timid in how it was. And it worked. We bought the property. Now, I don't know whether I was always going to buy the property or, you never know what went on, but I went, it's interesting. But, it was definitely an easier auction from my perspective because I didn't have to put on a bravado. They're like, I've got the same results? We'll never ever know. But you went, I can learn something through this. Is there a way that I can conduct myself in normal life or other parts of my business life that would actually get the better outcome? So you just ask the question and you pose the question, and maybe you can and maybe you can't, and you won't know until the next time it happens. And I'm dealing with council or the banks or whatever else, and I try and do something else.
In Bradley's experience, accepting that you won't be successful at everything and not compromising your integrity will in turn actually help you attract good things.
It's interesting that we don't really pay much homage to it. It's people get, everyone needs to win. You go, well, no, everyone doesn't need to win. And so using the same thing in a property sense, it's one of these things that you can't buy every single property. You can't you can't say yes to all the time. Everything you do is not going to be successful 100% of the time. So maybe you need to accept that that's not the case, and deal with the consequence with that yourself, rather than trying to, how can I get a better success rate at auctions? And so so this auction story I tell you was just let it go, let the flow go. If it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be. I've got my own rules or my own things that I think are important that I don't want to compromise. And so if I'm true to that, then good things will come.
Coming up after the break, we will take on the nuts and bolts of Bradley's strategy.
Me developing in property is making money from real estate without doing the physical work.
Check out Bradley's 3 components needed to be successful in property.
You need to have good projects to start with. So if you buy a lemon of a project, you can do whatever you want. It's still going to be a lemon of a project.
And that's next. I'm Tyrone Shum, and you're listening to Property Investory. Hey podcast listeners, are you enjoying listening to these stories and want more? Then head over to propertyinvestory.com and subscribe to receive your free property case studies that I only send exclusively via email. Just one of the many benefits of being part of this community. These real case studies are from experienced property investors where they share specific numbers of their portfolio, the strategies, and much more. Simply visit propertyinvestory.com to get your free case studies. Now back to the show. Starting his property journey in 1999, and with 15 years of experience in development, Bradley has implemented numerous strategies over time.
For me, I've got my own definition of what is developing, which may or may not be the same as what everybody else's is or something else's. So me, developing in property is making money from real estate without doing the physical work. So I've touched on earlier about people, the renovation TV shows or people who renovate a house or whatever and reckon they make a bunch of money and it's all their own labour type stuff. That's not developing. For me, it's making money from property without doing the physical work. And so that physical work can be, in a lot of cases, buying a site, building 4 townhouses and selling them. It can be rezoning land. It can be buying a block of flats. There's a whole bunch of things that they can do, but it's not me doing the physical work. Now, I do physical work. Right? I come to an office every day and I work on the business as a manager and whatever else.
And you deal with council?
Absolutely. But I even outsource that. So my assistant will deal with council in the first instance. So, if it needs to be at a high level, then I'll come and, get involved at a high level. But I'm not the one who's, I'll deal with the banks, but I'll let, the builder deal with the trades. I'll let, the architect deal with the engineer. I'll let everyone do their job on it. So my role is to oversee the business that does that. So from a perspective of what it is, and that's what it is I do so that's what I see as property development. So when I say, what do you do? I'm just trying to turn a buck out of property, all right? And I don't want to be the one who's painting a wall for that to be the case. I want to use my brain. I want to use how I read the tea leaves, and what I see happening is my way to go and do that. And so we probably haven't got outside the scope of this. What we're talking about right now is how I would do that. But that changes constantly as the government changes the legislation, or something else becomes flavour of the month. It sort of gives further opportunity to do that.
The flavour this month is construction and land subdivision.
Currently what I'm doing is two main things. So right now I'm doing a lot of construction. Now, will that continue to happen? As long as the opportunity is there and I think I can do that, and it's the best use of my time and dollars, I will continue to do that. But it might be something I might change tact on that. Might change tact tomorrow on that if I read the tea leaves a certain way that does that. Now, I'm flippant about saying it tomorrow, but typically that takes longer to do that just because of the time frame needed in property. But if I see something tomorrow, I will go and do that. So, to give you an example. If I got rang up this afternoon and I was told there's a property here, well, I'll ask you the question. I'll do it a different way. The suburb that you live in, Tyrone, what's the median price of houses?
Between 900 to $1 million.
900 to $1 million. So if you got a phone call today and someone said, Tyrone, I've got a property here, and let's assume it meets all the criteria of being the median type of house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, whatever the case, and you can buy it for $700,000 tomorrow because, insert whatever reason here, would you buy it?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I would. It's not a trick question. You would. There's a few reasons why you wouldn't, because you didn't have the 700 or you didn't have access to it. So you buy it. Now, what's your plan with it? Just to turn around and sell off for 900. Now, yeah, you might keep it for longer or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So that meets the criteria for me of property development. I'm making money without doing the physical work. I didn't do anything to make it worth 900. It was worth 900. I was able to pick it up for 700.
Ah, gotcha.
In whatever form. That wouldn't meet the criteria for me. Now, there'll be a point in time, as there will be a point in time in history, as there will be in the future, where that type of transaction will be able to be transacted for whatever reason. And so I would do that because it meets my definition of what I'm actually doing. Right now, I'm doing a lot of construction, where I'm trying to build something it cost me 700, but it's worth 900 using that same example in the case. So right now I'm doing a lot of construction of townhouses, and I'm also doing some land subdivision. They're the strategies that I'm using right now. And so with the townhouses, I'll either buy them something with a permit, or I'll go and get a permit, and I'll go and construct 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever number of townhouses, organise a builder, and then go and sell them. I reckon it's pretty boring for people who've never done it before. I reckon it's really, really exciting. But essentially, what I'm trying to do is to create a financial transaction. I'm trying to spend $4 million to receive $5 million, or whatever the number is, through that it's there. And I'm using rough numbers rather than absolute numbers, but you get the point. And the time frames are fairly quick in a sense, and the other ones is land subdivision, where they're bigger parcels of land. I'm using pretty much exclusively other people's money to do it, and the time frames are longer. Instead of being a 1 year to 2 year process, it might be a 4 year to 5 year process.
It's widely known among experts that property is generally a long-term game. So talking of timeframes, how long does it take to complete a project?
So I've heard people in the past say, I want a short-term property project. You go, well, there's some expectation behind timelines, because if I buy a property tomorrow, I may have, $700,000 cash to go tomorrow, but I'll be at the bank lined up, or the vendors are at the bank lined up, and the solicitor. Typically, the settlement times are 60 to 90 days. And so if I wanted to buy something and sell something in a really, really quick time frame, you can do simultaneous settlements and all this sort of stuff that can happen. But typically, if you're looking at 60 to 90 days on the way in and 60 to 90 days on the way out, well, that's about 6 months.
That's right.
So if you want to do something in the middle, like build something, or even if you want to renovate something, I realize you can get early access and all these other things like that. But it's not a week's exercise. It's a month's exercise, and it might be a year's exercise in doing some of these things. So it takes time. So the notion of cash flow needs to be understood by people, which is not a problem because property by itself is a slow moving beast, which is what I spoke earlier about. When the bank makes a call on you, they want you to, it's like understand the notion of repay money within a short period of time. It just can't happen like that because you've got a fire sale, and fire sale generally doesn't result in a good outcome. You want to be, as I say, you wake up every day wanting to be the hunter, not the hunted.
In order to be the hunter and succeed in property, Bradley says there are 3 components you need to have. You
need to have, a good project to start with. So if you buy a lemon of a project, you can do whatever you want. It's still going to be a lemon of a project. You need to have good funding. And so you need to make sure that, it's how you fund it. So right now, bank funding, as I say, is it's never been as cheap, nor has it ever been as hard to get. I should add that as well. Bank funding is pretty cheap comparatively to what it's been historically. So you need good funding. And not only good funding at an interest rate, but also good funding at an appropriate level. Because if you want to buy the property we just mentioned for $700,000, you want to make sure the banks can give you most of that, let's say 80%. Now, the bank changes their mind and gives you 60%, you wouldn't have what I would call good funding. Now, that's okay. You can have a poor project within reason. If you're adding value to it, you'll still be okay. Because if you paid $800,000 for the $900,000 property, you could still be okay. You'd be all right. If you've got good funding with it and it allows you to have capital free, or using other people's capital, being the banks, and it's an advantageous outcome. And the third thing you need cash reserves and or cash flow to allow you to buy yourself time in case one of the first two doesn't work out according to plan.
So how do you go about this?
So even as simple down to, I had a property settled yesterday. But by the time, so the bank takes all the money because that's what the bank does, and then it releases me the surplus, which is the easiest way to do it because it just is in a lot of cases. By the time they clear checks and transfer monies and so forth, you might be looking at 3, 4, 5, 7 days later. So even if you said the settlement was on a certain day, you may not get paid on that certain day. You might not get paid till a day after that certain day, which is okay as long as you understand that's okay. If I was expecting. So yesterday, the surplus was, I don't know, $600,000 was what landed in my account, or should land in my account, but it's not going to land there for another 3 days. Now, incredibly frustrating on one hand, but it doesn't matter. I know that in the end of the week there'll be $600,000 there. That's nice. There's nice end to the week.
Yep, definitely. Very happy with that.
Except if you need that $600,000 in the middle of the week, and that's not and it's a frustrating week. So it's understanding the cash flow and the cash balances and making adequate, allowance for all this in advance. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing is, I guess, business planning and looking at the flow of things. So when I say I manage, that's what I do. I manage not only people, but I manage money. And when I manage money and how it grows, I manage money in as far as the flow of money that everyone gets paid. And so I'm a little duck here that's, on the top everyone goes, oh, what do you actually do? But underneath, the legs are going like crazy.
For listeners who want to educate themselves on property developing, Bradley advises that while you can learn a lot from courses, you can learn even more from first-hand experience.
There's a whole bunch of people that will have courses online and and various things. The problem with the courses online, in my opinion, is that they will teach you the actual learning how the A to Z of how to develop it. A property or what have you is you can learn what the steps are and so forth, and it's fine. But the actual learning of how you run this and how you get past this as a business or whatever else, you then learn by doing. And so I'll be encouraging people to say, don't necessarily go. You don't have to go stupid and just start firing off at the hip or whatever else. However, understand that you can learn a course that tells you, I don't know, how to build a house. But that's good for why you want to build that house, why houses get built a certain way. The moment that things change, and what I've spent a bit of time talking about in the last little bit, is that the only constant is change, that won't do you much good if you're not actually used to dealing with how to change with it. And so I think you learn that by doing that, or by attempting to do that, and then trying to surround yourself with people who are also in a similar ilk of, I guess, going along the same journey that what you are, whether that be people you see as mentors or people that you see as equals and colleagues that you catch up with to do things together with.
If you want to connect with Bradley to undertake a development project with him, or just want to find out more about his strategy and mindset, you can do so through his website or via email.
I should preface at the start by saying what I do is not, I guess, appropriate for everyone, and how I go about it may not be appropriate for everyone. So, having said that, I have a website, bradleypropertygroup.com.au, and I'm Dave at bradleypropertygroup.com.au. By all means, send me an email. If you ask me an email and say, "Can you tell me everything you know, please?" in a return email, you may not get that. If you say, I don't know, can we have a cup of coffee? I already drink too much coffee as it is. If you say, can we have lunch? It's there. So, I'm a businessman, right? So I'm trying to add value to property and get paid for doing it. So I'd say, pitch me a proposal. In the past, I've done things with mentoring people. I've project managed with people and that sort of stuff. So by all means, get in contact. And it's there. And if you thought you just enjoyed this recording and you thought that was pretty good, send me an email that says it's there. And if we happen to our paths happen across, then that's terrific. If they don't, I just want to wish everyone the best of luck on not only their developing journey, but their investing journey, because that's what it is. And hopefully you get to an outcome that is what you're aiming at.
Thank you to Dave Bradley, our guest on this episode of Property Investory. If you want to hear more about his journey, then visit our website at propertyinvestory.com. Simply type in the search bar Dave Bradley and select that episode to learn more about his story. Also, if you haven't subscribed to receive your free property case studies that I only send out exclusively via email, you can text me your email address to 04 99 88 10 40 to subscribe. These real case studies are from experienced property investors where they share specific numbers of their portfolio, the strategies, and much more. Simply text me your email address to 04 99 88 10 40 to get your free case studies. Thanks for listening.